Want to speak real Chinese from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at ChineseClass101.com.
Hi everybody, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, how do I say excuse me in Chinese? As an English learner, I found the English phrase excuse me extremely useful. You can use it in many circumstances. I've been asked by my students if there is one literal translation or phrase just like it in Chinese. Unfortunately, there isn't. In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to say excuse me in different circumstances. Scenario number 1. You want to get someone's attention, so you can wave at them and say 你好. It's easy and polite. In a restaurant, you may say to a waiter, 你好, 点餐. If you're lost in a shopping mall and try to find the elevator, you may ask a sales lady or shopper by saying, 你好, 请问电梯在哪里? Scenario number 2. You're passing through a big crowd. You might say, 借过一下. The literal translation for this is, borrow your way a little. So you're on a crowded train at rush hour and you need to get off. Just elbow your way out and say, 借过一下, 我下车. Scenario number 3. You need to apologize. For example, you have to excuse yourself from a conversation to answer an important phone call, or you just sneeze really loudly. You can apologize by saying, 抱歉. Or in this case of a phone call, 抱歉, 我接个电话. 抱歉, 我要离开一会儿, 马上就回来. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 再见! Hi everybody, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer more of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, how do I say no to an invitation politely? Chinese people are known to be very friendly and hospitable, especially when they know you're from another country and learning Chinese. You're probably going to be invited to their house for dinners or parties that you may not want to go to. How do you turn down these invitations without being rude? It would be ideal if a simple 不用了,谢谢, no thank you, would do. But the reality is, Chinese people always try to avoid using the word no. To turn down an invitation, you usually will first apologize for not being able to make it. Then give the reasons why you can't go, just like in the following conversation. 明天有空吗? 来我家吃晚饭吧. Are you free tomorrow? Come have dinner at my place. 真不好意思, 明天晚上我要上课, 改天吧. I'm so sorry, I have to go to a class tomorrow night. Let's do it another time. In this conversation, person B didn't say no. Instead, she explained why she couldn't go and suggested doing it another time. This is the Chinese way. You don't want to say the word can't, 不行, or won't do, 不好, and you'll want to explain why. Many times, you don't even have to give the real reason. You can use a very vague term like 我有别的事情, I have other things to tend to, or 我有别的安排, I have other plans. So if you don't want to go to a party and don't feel like giving the real reason, you might say, 不好意思, 我有别的事情去不了了, 你们玩得开心? Saying no or turning down an invitation is not always easy. I believe it's not only difficult in the Chinese culture, but in many other cultures too. It's human nature that you don't want to say the word no. I hope after today's lesson you will find a way of saying no properly and politely in Chinese. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Please leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. That's all for today. 我们今天就到这里 and I'll see you in the next episode. 我们下期再见吧. Hi everybody, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, How do I use the final particle a? In Chinese language, especially colloquial Chinese, you'll often see the particles at the end of a sentence. They usually don't have any substantive meanings themselves, but they do play a very important role in carrying out the intonation of a sentence. We call those final particles. Words like ma, ba, a, o are all particles that appear at the end of a sentence to show the emotions of the speaker. Today we'll be talking about one of the most common final particle, a. Generally speaking, a can be put at the end of a greeting, a question, an exclamation, or imperative. It can often soften the tone, strengthen the emotion, and make the conversation more colloquial. Let's look at some examples. When you want to say, who is it? You can say, 是谁? This sounds very intense. But if you say, 是谁啊? The tone is much softer and less interpersonal. To agree with someone, you can use the word 好, 对, 是, etc. Many times you'll hear 好啊, 对呀, 是啊 in conversations. For example, 这里的人好多啊. So many people here. 是啊，对啊，每天都这样。Yeah, it's like this every day. 今天天气真好啊. It's an exclamation. We use ah to emphasize the fact that the weather is really very nice. 快吃啊 is an imperative. You will often hear parents say that to their kids to make them hurry up and eat their food. Here's another example of how to use ah. 动物园里有很多动物，老虎啊，狮子啊，大象啊，骆驼啊，长颈鹿啊，等等。There are lots of animals in the zoo, such as tigers, lions, elephants, camels, giraffes, and so on. Ah here is used when listing a series of things in spoken language. Generally speaking, ah is the final particle we use in colloquial language to make the speech softer, less abrupt, and more conversational. 是不是很有意思啊? How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. I'll see you in the next episode. 我们下期再见. Hi everybody, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, what are the most commonly used measure words for nouns? In English, we say 1 dog, 2 books, 3 kids. But in Chinese, you can't say 一狗, 2书, 3孩子. Instead, you have to say 一只狗, 2本书, 3个孩子. Here, 只, 本, 个 are measure words, or as they're sometimes called, counters for nouns. There are so many different measure words for different kinds of nouns. Some measure words can only be used with 1 or 2 nouns. Some can pair with thousands of nouns. Today we're going to introduce the most used counters in Chinese. The most common and easiest one to use is 个. You can use it to count objects, animals, people, or even concepts. You can say 一个苹果, 1 apple, 一个手机, 1 phone, 一个虫子, 1 bug, 一个想法, 1 idea, or 2个故事, 2 stories. To count animals, you often use 只, such as 一只小鸟, 1 bird, 一只老虎, 1 tiger, 很多只蝴蝶, many butterflies. To count objects that are thin and flat, like paper, we use 张, 一张票, 1 ticket, 2张照片, 2 pictures, 3张黑色的桌子, 3 black tables. To count objects that are long and easy to bend, you can use 条, like 一条鱼, 1 fish, 一条小河, 1 small river, 这条裤子, this pair of pants, 那条路, that road. To count things that come in pairs, you can use 双. For example, 一双鞋, 1 pair of shoes, 两双手 two pairs of hands, 三双筷子 three pairs of chopsticks. To count people, we can use a more respectful counter than 个 that's 位一位客人 one customer 这位先生 this mister 几位老师 a few teachers. If you're talking about their occupations, it'd be better to use 名一名医生 a doctor 一名消防员 a firefighter 一名歌手 a singer. There's no way for me to list all the major words in this one short video. 个之张条双位 and 名 are some of the most frequently used ones. If you have more questions about major words or counters, please feel free to let us know. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 我们下期再见. See you in the next episode. Bye. Hi everybody, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is the number 2 R or 两? R and 两 both mean 2. As we mentioned in the previous lesson, to say 2 books and 2 people, we say 两本书 and 两个人. We don't say 二本书 or 二个人. When we're counting, we say 一二三四五, but we don't say 一两三四五. So the rule of thumb is 两 is used in front of major words or counters. R is used in counting and numerals. Here are some examples. 我有2张票. I have 2 tickets. 我的座位号码是22号. My seat number is number 22. 现在2点了. It's 2 o'clock now. 这个表520块钱. This watch costs 520 kuai. Imagine one day your friend is looking in her wallet and says, 我有2张20块. Do you know what that means? It means I have 2 20 kuai bills. There's an exception. When you say 200 something, you can either say 200 or 200. When you say 2000 something, you say 2000 instead of 2000. Let's try to say these numbers. 21, 21, 42, 42, 221, 221 or 221, 2221, 2221 or 2221. Here is an interesting note you might want to know. In Chinese, if you call someone 250, you're calling him dumb. It's not a bad word. Sometimes people will say it as a joke. I don't know why we have to use the number 250, but it is what it is. So next time if you accidentally mention the number 250, don't be confused when people next to you start to laugh. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 我们下次再见. See you next time. Bye. Hi everybody, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, does Chinese have a past tense? The answer is no. To express a past event, you don't need to change the form of the verb. To suggest the passing or completion of an event, you'll need one of 2 things. First, you can use sentence final particles like 了, 过, or 过了 after the verb. Or you add past time adverbials like 昨天, yesterday, and 去年, last year. 我吃了 or 我吃过了 means I ate or I ate already. 我们见过了 we met or we have met before. 他昨天生病了 he got sick yesterday. To make the negative past, we use may plus verb or may plus verb plus 过. Notice that you don't need the le here for the negative form. Let's see some examples. Positive, 我吃了 I ate. Negative, 我没吃 I didn't eat. Positive, 我们见过了 We have met before. Negative, 我们没见过 We haven't met before. Positive, 他昨天生病了 He got sick yesterday. Negative, 他昨天没生病 He didn't get sick yesterday. Generally, to turn a statement into a yes or no question, you can simply put a ma at the end. This works for past tense too. 你吃过了吗 Did you eat? 你们见过了吗 Have you met? 他昨天生病了吗 Did he get sick yesterday? Other time phrases you can use to describe past events include 昨晚 last night, 前天 the day before yesterday, 上个星期 last week, 上个月 last month, 以前 before. Let's see some more examples. 前天我去朋友家玩了 I hung out at my friend's place the day before yesterday. 她以前没有做过这种工作 She hasn't done this kind of job before. 刘老师，你上个星期出差了吗 Mr. Liu, did you go on a business trip last week? Beware that seeing le in a sentence doesn't necessarily mean the sentence is past tense. Le has a few different usages. Representing the passing and completing of an action is only one of them. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 我们下期再见. See you in the next episode. Bye. Hi everyone, Yinru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, does Chinese have a future tense? Just like there's no past tense in Chinese, there's no future tense in Chinese either. You can indicate something is going to happen in the future by using the auxiliary words 会, 要, and or add future time phrases like 明天, tomorrow, 下个月, next month, and so on. 会 can be translated as will or will expect to. In comparison, 要 indicates one's intention like to be going to or to want to. Let's look at some examples. 明晚我会去看电影 Tomorrow night I will go see a movie. 你要跟我一起去吗 Do you want to go with me? 下个星期我会去上海 I will go to Shanghai next week. To make negative forms, just put a 不 in front of 会 and 要 to make it 不会, 不要. For example, 她不会喜欢这个地方的 She won't like this place. 我不要跟你一起去上海 I am not going to go to Shanghai with you. Some more time phrases expressing the future include 下星期三 next Wednesday, 后天 the day after tomorrow, 明年 next year, 以后 in the future. 我下星期三会给你打电话 Next Wednesday, I'll give you a call. 你明年要毕业了吗 Are you going to graduate next year? 以后我不会再来了 I will not come again in the future. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 我们下期再见. See you in the next episode. Bye. Hi everybody, Yinru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, how do I use the adverb 就? Today we're going to show you how to use the word 就 in 3 ways. Here's the first usage. It's used before a verb to suggest the earliness and quickness of the action. For example, if someone says, 你就来了啊? The implied meaning is, oh, you're here already? I didn't expect you to be here so soon. 我5点就到家了. I got home at 5. Here it's implied that at 5 is considered early. 他1分钟就学会了。He got it within 1 minute. Second usage. It's used to connect two actions, indicating that the second action, which is the action following 就, happens as soon as the first action is completed. Let's see some examples. 我吃完早饭就去上班了。As soon as I finished my breakfast, I went to work. 我写完报告就把电脑关了。I turned off the computer after I finished writing my report. 你一下飞机就打车回家了吗？ Did you get a cab and go home as soon as you got off the plane? Third and final usage. It's also used as a conjunction word, indicating that the second action or situation which follows 就 is the result of the first action or situation. 你喜欢吃就多吃点。Since you like it, eat more. 要是你不打电话给我，我就打电话给你。If you don't call me, then I'll call you. 既然她不喜欢唱歌，我们就不去卡拉 OK. Since she doesn't like to sing, we're not going to karaoke. Karaoke is a very popular entertainment in China. You will see lots of KTVs, which are karaoke places with private karaoke rooms of different sizes. These places usually serve food and beverages. 你喜欢卡拉 OK 吗？喜欢的话，我们现在就去。Do you like karaoke? If you do, let's go now. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 我们今天就到这里，下期再见。See you in the next episode. Bye. Hi everyone! Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, why do I hear 一下 and 一点 a lot? 一下 and 一点 or 一点 as people from North China would pronounce it are used in everyday language to soften the tone in imperatives. 一下 literally means one time, and 一点 literally means a little bit. Just a side note, people in North China like to use 儿化音 in their speech. 儿化音 refers to the phenomenon of adding the sound of 儿 at the end of a word. For example, people in the South say 没事, it's okay. People from the North would say 没事儿. People in the South say 好玩, fun, while people in North China like to say 好玩. Let's compare some sentences with and without 一下 and 一点。你过来 versus 你过来一下。The first sentence sounds like an order, come here. The second one sounds more like a polite request, come here for a second. 你喝茶 versus 你喝一点茶。The first one sounds like a parent commanding you, drink your tea. The second one, on the other hand, is more loving, like saying, have some tea, honey. Since nobody wants to sound mean when they don't have to, you'll hear verb plus 一下 or 一点 in spoken Chinese. Sometimes you can omit the 一 in 一点. You can either say 来一点咖啡吧, let's have some coffee, or 来点咖啡吧. Or as people from North would say it with 儿化音, 来点咖啡吧. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 我们下次再见吧. See you next time. Bye. Hi everybody, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is Chinese money called yuan or kuai? Chinese money is called RMB. This is an abbreviation of 人民币, people's currency. In an exchange rate table, the unit for RMB is always yuan. However, in daily life, people often use kuai instead of yuan. The answer is very simple. Yuan is used in formal writings and kuai is used in colloquial everyday language. So to ask how much something is, you can say 这个多少钱? How much is this? Then you may get an answer such as 5块 or 20块. The same rule applies to 角 and 毛. 角 is the formal 10 cents. 一角等于 0.1 元 1 角 equals to 0.1 yuan. The more casual way of saying 角 is 毛. For example, 请问这个多少钱? Excuse me, how much is this? 2毛 or 5块5毛 20 cents or 5 yuan and 50 cents. And many times people won't say the 毛 at the end when there's both 块 and 毛. So instead of 5块5毛, people might just say 5块5. Nowadays, Chinese don't use fen anymore. This is the monetary unit for 1 cent. The smallest money in your pocket would be 一角 or 一毛, 10 cents. Like any other currency, Chinese money has coins and bills or notes. Coins are called 硬币, which literally means hard money. Notes are called 纸币, which literally means paper money. 硬币 comes in 一角, 五角, 一元. 纸币 comes in 一元, 五元, 10元, 20元, 50元, and 100元. Here's some cultural tip. China doesn't have a culture of tipping. Traditional businesses wouldn't take tips, but higher-end Western-style restaurants in megacities like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou may expect tips. Tips in Chinese is 小费. To say keep the change, you can say 不用找了. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 我们下期再见. See you in the next episode. Hi everybody! Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, do Chinese use AM and PM when talking about time? The answer is no. Even though there are people in China, mostly well-educated people, who would know what AM and PM mean, most Chinese don't use AM and PM. In formal situations, for example on a train schedule, you'll often see the 24-hour format for time, such as 07:30, 21:20. In spoken language, people often use 上午, 下午, 早上, and 晚上 to be specific. 上午 means morning, 下午 is afternoon, 早上 is early morning, and finally 晚上 is night. So to say 10 a.m. in spoken language would usually say 上午10点. To say 3 p.m. we use 下午3点. Generally speaking, if it's before 9 a.m. you can say 早上7点, 7 a.m. because it's still early in the morning. If it's after 6 p.m. you can say 晚上7点, 7 p.m. because it's late evening. If the time is between 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. we use 中午, which means noon. Let's see how we say the following times. 6:20 a.m. 早上6点20 9:30 a.m. 上午9点30 or 上午9点半 半 here means half. 12 p.m. 中午12点 1:30 p.m. 下午1点30 or 下午1点半 10:25 p.m. 晚上10点25 And do you remember how to ask about time? You can say 现在几点了? What time is it now? 明天几点开会? What time is the meeting tomorrow? 我们后天什么时候见面? When are we going to meet the day after tomorrow? Now it's time for us to say goodbye. Or in Chinese, 现在到了我们说再见的时间了. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 我们下期再见. See you in the next episode. Bye bye. Hi everybody, Yiru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, what is the proper word order in a sentence? Unlike the pronunciation and writing system, sentence structure in Chinese is not as confusing and exotic. For most simple sentences, word order in Chinese is similar to that in English. Let's look at some basic SVO sentences, which are sentences with subject plus verb plus object word order. 我爱你, I love you. The subject is 我, the verb I, and the object 你, just like in English. 他吃面, he eats noodles. The subject is 他, the verb 吃, and the object 面. If you want to add a time phrase in a sentence, you usually put this phrase after subject. For example, 他星期二吃面. He eats noodles on Tuesdays. 我一直很爱你. I always love you. 你昨天晚上洗澡了吗? Did you take a shower last night? If you want to add a place in a sentence, like where someone does something, you also put it after the subject, before the verb. Let's see a couple of examples. 他在家吃面. He eats noodles at home. 我的好朋友在伦敦工作. My good friend works in London. What if we have a time and a place at the same time? Usually, we put time after the subject, then place, then verb, or verb plus object. For example, 我的好朋友去年在伦敦工作. My good friend worked in London last year. 他们上个星期六晚上在电影院看电影. They saw a movie at a movie theater last Saturday night. Of course, there are exceptions to the rules, and many times components are omitted in different cases, but the above word order is the basic foundation for sentence structure in Chinese. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 我们再见吧. Bye. Hi everybody, Yiru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, what are the taboos I need to be careful of in Chinese culture? The biggest taboo in Chinese culture would be to mention the word death, 死, or anything related to it, especially on happy occasions such as New Year, 新年, wedding, 婚礼, or birthday. In China, people hate the word 死 so much that they even hate the number 4, 四, which sounds the same as 死, but has a different tone. Hospitals sometimes don't even have a 4th floor, 4楼. Apparently, nobody wants to go to that floor. When choosing their lucky date, 良辰吉日, to get married, couples will avoid dates with the number 4, such as the 4th day in lunar calendar, or 农历初四. On the other hand, the number 6, 六, 8, 八, 9, 9 are considered lucky numbers in Chinese culture. There are other taboos which are relatively minor. For example, you don't want to wear a green hat because it means that your wife or partner is cheating on you. You don't want to stand your chopsticks up in a bowl because bowls with chopsticks stuck in them are for the deceased. You don't want to share a pear, 梨, because to share a pear is 分离, which has the same pronunciation as 分离, to separate or to part ways. When giving gifts, try to avoid giving umbrellas, 伞, and 钟, clock, because the pronunciation of 伞 is close to 散, which also means to split or to part ways. The pronunciation of 钟 is the same as 钟, and 送终 means to see a deceased person for the last time before they get buried. So to review, let's make a list of all the do's and don'ts we just talked about. 不要说死, don't say death. 不要戴绿帽子, don't wear a green hat. 不要把筷子插进碗里, don't stand chopsticks up in a bowl. 不要分离, don't share a pear. 不要送伞, 不要送钟, don't give umbrellas and clocks as gifts. How was this lesson? Are there any similar taboos in your culture? Let us know in the comments below and we'll see you next time. 下期再见. Bye. Hi everybody. Yinru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, what are some useful tips for someone visiting China for the first time? Visiting China is exciting and very beneficial for your Chinese learning as well. But before you go, there are some tips I would love to share with you. Tip number 1. Take very good care of your valuables, especially at train stations, bus stops, airports, busy streets, and tourist attractions. Things get stolen within seconds. That's why a lot of women carry their backpacks in front of them. Tip number 2. Always bring toilet paper to public restrooms. Most Chinese public restrooms don't have toilet paper or paper towels. Some may not have hand soap either, so it's good to be prepared. Tip number 3. Expect people to be rude. People may stare if you have a non-Asian face, especially at places that don't usually have foreign visitors. People may cut in line, people may spit and sneeze right in front of you, people may talk loudly in public, and smokers may smoke in non-smoking areas. Just remember, these behaviors are something that Chinese are not proud of, but are still pretty common in China. Tip number 4. Internet is censored in China. That means no Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Google unless you use a VPN. Tip number 5. Be aware of the cleanliness of some local restaurants and street food. The food may look very good, but it's very likely you'll get sick from it. Bring some medications with you just to be safe. Tip number 6. Make an attempt to speak Mandarin to Chinese people. They will love it and make your stay more enjoyable. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? China is definitely a wonderful place to visit. I didn't give you these tips to scare you away. They're just something you might want to know to make your trip more pleasant. If you have visited China before, please share your tips and experience with us. We'd love to hear your stories. I'll see you next time. 我们下次再见. Bye. Hi everybody, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, how do I decipher Chinese characters I don't know? As we mentioned in an early lesson, you need to know at least 5,000 Hanzi to be able to read. Does that mean you have to memorize every single one of them? Not necessarily. Each character is made of components, which many times indicate or give hints as to what the character means. These components are called radicals, or 偏旁部首. Learning some common radicals will help you recognize, remember, and reproduce characters. For example, the character 明 is made of two radicals, 日 and 月, meaning sun and moon. When you put the radical sun and moon together, we get the character 明, the most common meaning of which is bright. A lot of times when you see the radical 日 in a character, it often has something to do with the sun, like this character, 早, meaning early, and the word 早上, meaning morning. 水 means water. This radical is its variation. When you see them in a character, it usually means the character has something to do with water. 洗, to wash, 河, river, 海, ocean. 火 means fire, and this radical is its variation. When you see 火 and this radical, the character usually is related to fire or heat. Some examples are 热, hot, 烧, to burn, 灯, light, and 烟, smoke. 言 and this character are radicals for something related to speech, such as 说, to say, 语, language, 词, word, 誓言, promise. 时 and this radical are radicals for anything related to food and drinks. For example, 饭, meal or rice, 饱, full, 饿, hungry, 餐馆, restaurant. Learning Chinese characters does take a lot of time and effort, but the result sure is rewarding. After you learn some basic Chinese characters, you'll even find it easier to navigate in some other countries like Japan, since Hanzi is also part of their writing system. So if you've decided to learn Hanzi, I recommend that you start with radicals. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them all in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 我们再见吧. Bye everyone. Hi everybody, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, what is the difference between Mandarin and Chinese? Sometimes people say they speak Chinese, and sometimes they use the word Mandarin. The two words seem almost interchangeable. Mandarin, also known as Standard Chinese, 普通话, is the official language of mainland China and Taiwan. It's also one of the 4 official languages of Singapore. It's the national language that's taught in schools, and it's based on the standard dialect spoken in Beijing, the capital city of China. While Chinese is a more general term, it refers to a group of languages spoken by the Han people, an ethnic group of East Asia. Chinese language includes a variety of regional dialects, such as Mandarin, Cantonese, Shanghainese, etc. As a matter of fact, each town has its own dialect. When people from different areas talk to each other in their own dialect, chances are they won't be able to understand each other. For example, in Shanghainese, people greet each other by saying 侬好, whereas in Cantonese, people say 你好. That is why a common dialect is needed for more effective communication throughout the whole country. With a standard dialect, we can all greet each other by saying 你好, and nobody gets confused. Since most Chinese people speak Mandarin, when people refer to the Chinese language, they often mean Mandarin. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. See you in the next episode. 我们下期再见吧. Bye. Hi everybody, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, what are Chinese characters? Chinese characters, 汉字, are logograms. These are symbols used to represent whole words. They're used in written Chinese. In English, we use an alphabet to spell out each word. However, most letters on their own don't carry a particular meaning. In Chinese, characters come with an assigned pronunciation and their own definitions. You can combine certain characters together to make words. Most Chinese words are made of 1 to 3 characters. For example, 我, I, 喜欢, like, 冰淇淋, ice cream. As you may know, Chinese culture has had a great influence on all the cultures in East Asia. Chinese characters are a great example. Hanzi have been brought to and modified in several other Asian languages, including Japanese, Korean, and Vietnamese. There are 50,000 Chinese characters in existence, but don't be scared away. You only need 3,000 to 5,000 to be considered literate. It may still sound like a lot, and it does take time to memorize them, but it's not an impossible task. You can start by learning the components of characters, which are called radicals, 偏旁部首. This will make it much easier to recognize, remember, and reproduce characters. For example, the character 明 is made of 2 radicals, 日 and 月, sun and moon. When you put the radicals sun and moon together, we get the character 明. The most common meaning for the symbol is bright. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. See you in the next episode. 我们下期再见吧. Bye. Hi everybody, Andrew here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, what is Pinyin? Pinyin is the standard, most commonly used phonetic system for transliterating Chinese, meaning spelling out Chinese using Roman letters. When you look up a word in a Chinese dictionary, there's always pinyin assigned to each Chinese character. It's a way to read and pronounce Chinese words through English letters. For example, Han, spelled as H-A-N, is the pinyin for the symbol Han, as in Hanzu Ren, the Han people, an ethnic group of East Asia. Even though most Chinese people can read pinyin, it's not a substitute for the Hanzi or the Chinese characters. This is because pinyin is the sound system in Chinese, whereas Hanzi is the writing system. Here's an example for the sentence, I can read Chinese characters in pinyin and in Hanzi. 我认识汉字. Sometimes people wonder if they can only learn pinyin and ignore the actual Chinese characters. The short answer is no. Chinese books and newspapers are written with Chinese characters without the use of pinyin. unless they're written for children who are still learning to read. So for Chinese beginners, you definitely want to learn Pinyin rule first. Pinyin is usually made of 3 parts: an initial consonant, a final consisting of one or a combination of vowels, and a tone. There's a Pinyin chart for beginners to learn and memorize the consonants and vowels. We'll get into the pronunciations of some of the most difficult Pinyin sounds in the later episodes. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 我们下期再见. See you in the next episode. Bye! Hi everybody, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, what are traditional and simplified characters in Chinese? Do I need to learn both? Traditional characters are the original Chinese characters. They were used in China before the 1950s and are still in use in many areas outside mainland China, including Hong Kong, Taiwan, and other Southeast Asian countries that speak Chinese. To increase literacy, simplified Chinese, which has less strokes, has been adopted. It was established as the official writing system by the government in mainland China. Therefore, nowadays, simplified Chinese is used in mainland China and traditional Chinese is used mostly outside mainland China. Let's look at how traditional Chinese and simplified Chinese are different from each other. Happy, 快乐,快乐, study, 学习, 学习, weather, 天气, 天气. Due to the similarities between the two writing systems, someone who is familiar with one writing system may be able to decipher characters in the other. Traditional Chinese is often considered to be more authentic because it's rooted directly in the ancient forms. However, it's not necessary to learn both at the same time. Just pick one depending on where you want to visit or live. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 我们下期再见. See you in the next episode. Hi everybody, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, what are the different tones in Chinese? Many Chinese learners find the tones quite difficult because the intonation in Chinese is very special and very different from most other languages. There are 4 stress tones in Chinese. Let's run through them now. First tone, 一声, is high and steady. Ah. Second tone, 二声, starts with a little lower pitch and goes up. Ah. Third tone, 三声, is even lower. It first dips down, then rises. Ah. Fourth tone, 四声, starts high then falls sharply. Ah. In addition to the above 4 tones, there's a special tone called neutral tone, 轻声. It doesn't come with any marks on top. To make the neutral tone, try to say it as in the first tone, except that you say it in a more light and short way, like ah. It's not only important, but crucial to master different tones in Chinese. There are so many words that come with the same pinyin spelling. If you don't get the tones right, it's very likely that your mispronounced tones will lead to misunderstandings or even embarrassment. A quick example. The pinyin and tone for Hanyu is with the 4th falling tone on Han, Hanyu. The pinyin and tone for Hanyu has a 2nd rising tone on Han, Hanyu. They sound quite close, right? But Hanyu is Chinese language and Hanyu is actually Korean language. Don't get them mixed up and be very careful with the tones. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 我们今天就到这里，下期再见. See you in the next episode. Bye. Hi everyone, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, how do I pronounce the pinyin initials C, Q, X, Z, ZH. Most pinyin initials or consonants have very similar pronunciations to their English counterparts, but there are a few sounds that may not sound the way you'd expect. Now let's look at some of the difficult consonants to pronounce in Chinese Pinyin. C sounds like ts, as in 菜, vegetable or dish, 醋, vinegar, and 猜错, to get something wrong. Z sounds like z, as in 汉字, Chinese characters, 儿子, son, 自己, oneself. Q sounds like qi, but with a flat tongue and a flat mouth. For example, qi, energy, 钱, money, 亲戚, relatives. Another initial sound that may be different from English or your mother tongue is X. It sounds like xi, but once again, your tongue is flat here. Xi, west, 小, small, 谢谢, thank you, and 学校, school. Now let's look at the double initial ZH. You may see it in some very common Chinese family names like Zhang, Zhou, Zheng, and in this word, 中国, China. ZH sounds like the first sound in jerky, with the tip of the tongue raised against the hard palate. Try 战争, war, 珍珠, pearl, 这种, this kind. As some of you may be wondering, aren't consonants or pinyin initials supposed to be quiet, without the vibration of vocal cords? Why do Chinese teachers and friends say 波, ci, de, fo, ge instead of b, c, de, f, ge? Well, it's because when Chinese people learn pinyin at school, they're taught to pronounce them with a vowel to make the sounds clearer and easier to say. So Chinese may pronounce all the initials as 波, ci, de, fo, ge, he, ji, ke, le, mo, ne, po, qi, ri, si, te, xi, zi, chi, shi, zhi. 这些词你都会念了吗？我们这个系列怎么样？有趣吗？你喜欢吗？ Can you pronounce all these words now? How's our series? Is it interesting? Do you like it? How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. That's all for today. 今天就到这里. I'll see you in the next episode. 我们下期再见. Bye. Hi everybody, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, how do I pronounce yu, yue? In Pinyin, there are 6 single vowels called finals. A, O, I, U, Yu. There are also numerous compound finals. These are made by combining 2 or 3 of the single vowels, or by adding an or at the end of vowels. Here are some examples. Ao, O, A, Ye, Yu, Wen, Yan, Yong, and so on. The yu, yue are the relatively difficult ones for non-Chinese native speakers to pronounce. First, let's look at how to say the final accurately. Sounds like the E in the. Make sure your tongue is flat and low. A lot of Chinese learners turn to curl their tongue when saying which is not necessary. Let's look at some examples. 哥哥, 可乐, 喝, 车. Unlike the vowel u has 2 little dots on top. To make this sound, try to round up your lips as much as you can. For example, 女儿, 绿色. There's a special rule concerning the omission of the 2 dots on yu. When it follows the initials i, ji, qi, and xi, it's spelled as u, but still pronounced as yu. For example, 鱼, 句子, 去, and 必须. This rule also applies to any compound finals that starts with yu. For example, 均 or 圆圈. 约 sounds like the combination of yu and as in 省略, 虐待. Just like other vowels that start with yu, you don't need the two dots on top when they come after i, ji, qi, xi. In this case, we have 月亮, 决定, 缺少, 学习. 这些规律你都学会了吗？多读，多听，多练，拼音其实并没有这么难。How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 我们下期再见. See you in the next episode. Bye. Hi everybody, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, what is the rule of pronunciation for 不 and 一? When studying Chinese, you've probably seen these two characters often, 不 and 一. They are very, very common, but you may notice that their tones change when they come before certain words. For example, 不 is the second rising tone in 不要, but it's the fourth falling tone in 不好. 一 as in number 1 is pronounced as 一, but in 一样, it becomes the second tone. In 一起, it's the fourth tone. Seems very confusing, right? Don't worry, there are some rules we can follow to use the correct tones. When 不 is used alone, it's always the fourth tone, 不. When 不 is followed by a character with a fourth tone, it changes to the second tone, 不. For example, 不是, 不会, 不错. When 不 is followed by a non-fourth tone, which are the first, second, and third tones, it's pronounced as the fourth tone, as in 不知道, 不行, 不好. When 一 is used as a number, it's the first flat tone, as in 1, 2, 3, 4. 第一, 一号线. When 一 is followed by a fourth tone, it changes to the second tone. 一样, 一定, 一次. When 一 is followed by a non-fourth tone, it becomes the fourth tone. 一般, 一种, 一点儿. Now you know the rules. How do you pronounce this phrase? Let's work backwards. The second 一 is followed by a fourth tone, 样. So 一 here should be the second rising tone. 一样. Now the 不 here is followed by a second tone, 一. So 不 here should be the fourth tone, 不一样. Now the first 一 is followed by a fourth tone, 不. So the first 一 itself should be the second tone, 一不一样. So problem solved. This phrase is pronounced as 一不一样. 你还有什么不懂的地方吗？请给我们留言，我们一定会给你回复。How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. Hi everybody, Inru here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer most of your common Chinese questions. The question for this lesson is, does 你好 really mean hi? 你好 and hi. Are these two greetings the same? Actually, they're not. 你好 in Chinese is a very formal greeting. It's usually used when people meet for the first time. You can use it in self-introductions such as 你好，我叫玛丽。你好，很高兴认识你。Or you can use 你好 as a phrase to get a stranger's attention when you need to ask a question or favor. For example, you need to get to some place, so you may stop a passerby by saying, 你好，请问一下，电影院怎么走？ Or when you're ordering food in a restaurant, you may say, 你好，我要一份1号套餐. Well, if 你好 is used in formal situations with people you don't really know, how do you greet people you do know? Well, it's definitely not necessary to use 你好 to your best friends when you bump into them on the street. You can simply say hi to them in English, or the Chinese version, hi. This is essentially a translation from English. Hi is a very popular greeting among young people, so feel free to use it as you do in English. If you haven't seen your friend for a while, you may say, Hi, 玛丽，好久不见，最近好吗? Or you can simply say their name and then continue with some small talk. For example, it's mealtime. You could say, 玛丽，吃了吗? This is a very informal greeting, but so commonly used. After all, eating is a big deal in Chinese culture. What if you're greeting someone you know, but they're your supervisor or your senior? To make it more polite, you can address them by their title, then add a 好 after the title. Say you see your teacher, it's considered polite to greet them by saying 某某老师好. If the teacher's name is Li, you'll say 李老师好. If you see your manager Li, you can say 李经理好. Many times when at work, even if the person you're greeting is the same level as you, or even at a lower level, it's still common to address them by their surname followed by the title. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. 我们下期再见，拜拜。